kind of fucked up at this point. They've been here for I don't know how many fucking times now. The same shit has occurred. They really have no way of denying it. But I said something truthfully about the type of crazy particular person was going to be going gradually. And this person deserved it. And I never fucking did shit to essentially be dragged around like I've been dragged around. I have seen people out west get murdered. I have seen them get fucking faces crushed. I have seen all kinds of awful things. I've been fucked around by their dirty pigs, and honestly, now they're trying to fucking drag me back there and put me in a fucking goddamn hole somewhere, essentially. They've already put me multiple times. They drive me crazy like my fucking dad did when he let me get raped there as a fucking kid, essentially, and they try to steal all my shit. And then fucking Google turns around and deletes my fucking account like 2 years later, by the end of year 1, after they fucking, have driven me nutty enough, essentially they can bring me back, or they drug me and fucking like move me back, whichever, and have stolen everything, and it feels like, oh, I can drift back, essentially, just like I did as a fucking child, essentially, and everything will be alright the way it was before, just in preparation for an onslaught of the same fucking shit over and over again. Essentially, yeah. They're committing high-level felonies by the dozen, each person, each fucking day out there. They're not doing much better, essentially, in eastern Pennsylvania or western Pennsylvania, any of the extremes. Any place they could either... Honestly, I don't think there's a whole lot of difference anymore, to be entirely honest. Either places they can price people out of, like Chicago or fucking New York, for example. Philadelphia, places no one wants to live in, essentially. And fucking, like, downtown Pittsburgh. There's a couple all fucking weak fucking places where there's no work. And some people continue to survive there consistently. It's just a question of where they thought they could hide, or where they thought they could take over gradually. It's been going on for a while. At the very least, they have a presence in a lot of places. But there are certain places that are worse. The states, essentially, which were incorporated late, places where people were priced out in the last half a century, other such places. Buying their trade, essentially selling fucking, like, their children into a form of fucking slavery and raping little fucking kids, and all the while increasing, essentially, the methods by which they're able to continue to basically create one generation of dupes after another and get better at it, or one generation of people who are kind of like a little crippled mentally in that respect, because that piece of subject matter and the idea that life isn't really worth living anymore because they've done everything they can to prevent people from essentially living ordinary lives. People could live ordinary lives, they just live them, in most cases. These people don't seem to really understand that because they never lived normal lives. And they had to drag certain people like me backwards, essentially, because there's no fucking way I would go along with this stupid shit. I mean, before even finding out a little bit of their fucking time, what the fuck they were actually up to, why the fuck would I want to go around in a fucking goddamn circle just because everybody else is making me crazy by doing the same thing? It's like it's to the point where I can't find a normal job that doesn't have these fucking pieces of shit fucking stuffed into it, even if it's a high-paying job, Even if it's a fucking high-paying job. Even if I'm making 60k a year, 70k a year, something like that, essentially, even a high-paying job, essentially, is the same kind of bullshit. I'm tired of it. I wanted to leave something behind in this fucking world, some kind of contribution throughout my life. I have been a self-starter many times. I tried to involve myself with the government, I tried to involve myself with the intelligence community, and I did for a time. And I found out just how fucked all of them are. I tried to fucking involve myself with the military, which at least if they are screwed up, did a better job of hiding it for the most part. You know, ever since essentially all of these, you know, ever since essentially I got sucked into their fucking bullshit, you know, where they started to, in certain areas that I was in, rolling back evidence essentially that people existed. Now certain people are so far in, you got people claiming they're 20 and they look like they're fucking 50. Okay? It's not that certain people aren't crazy or a little nuts. I am a little nuts because essentially I've seen horrible things that made me susceptible to repressing my memory. And I just help it along by doing shit like dragging me back to the same fucking spot and throwing all my fucking shit essentially that I got after a certain point away or handing it off to someone else and stealing videos like this and deleting online accounts Google and shit like that. Just like that video I just put back up essentially and recreated. You know, not interesting. Okay? I do not want to live in this loop. I do not benefit from this. I don't want to be around chummers. I do not like them. The lies essentially that were told me at various points, essentially, the fucking bullshit stories they fucking told me at various points, oh, you were raped when you were a kid, you just don't remember, and they help me remember, thanks for that. You know, remember, you know, your parents, essentially there aren't many people left whose parents don't fucking like, allow them to be raped whenever they're fucking kids, and blah, 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 you just don't remember, because of this and this and that reason, but worse, so like, you know, now essentially all these people who are caught who are sex offenders, you know, will work for you, and so on and so forth, you know, help you out when you need helped out, and so on and so forth, and this and that and the other thing, and have sex with you, and all that kind of stuff. It's like, you know, there's an old saying, no one gives horse in the fucking mouth. I should have looked like real fucking close. That was just one version of the fucking lies they told. So many other fucking lies that were probably actually truths to some fucking degree. They told me, like, they were, at one point they told me that I was also building a future, at least a future for one of my, you know, offspring, but I never saw them. Another time, essentially, they said essentially that they had, you know, and remembering all this traumatic shit at once, yeah, no, that's the part I actually intended to remember for the longest, essentially, originally, you know what I mean? Because that was a decent time period until it wasn't, until they fucked me over and screwed my head up and did shit like drug me or tell me essentially I imagined it all or shit like that and dragged me all the way back to the fucking beginning, all over again. You know, give you an example, they were saying it was like 20 fucking 15 essentially, and there was music out and shit that was from 2019, and probably about 8-9 years ago essentially, you know, when this shit was all resetting itself, I saw fucking like videos essentially from 2020, well, it's supposed to be getting released in 2023, which by the way we're long past at this point. It's not what the time period says. And no, this was not the way life was. Alright? For the younger generation, that's just stupid. Okay? That is just stupid. Now, the thing essentially to remember about all this crap is basically that these people think that they're getting something from this. They're going around in a circle. I think personally that they think that they are covering up their crimes, which are many. Quite a few of which are actually could get them life in prison. You know, some could get them killed, honestly. Crimes like conspiracy, human trafficking, murder, molestation, and whatever essentially the formal fucking, like, the formal freaking, like, title is for a crime where an individual is intentionally psychologically warping another person to make them as fucked up as they are, essentially, or corrupting them, essentially, over a long time period to make them into a sex offender, or to interfere beneficial, essentially, to the individual that's working them. You know, like, for example, limiting a person's ability to cope with certain types of traumatic experiences, causing them to be more likely to do things like, say, for example, repress and agree to the lack of evidence, essentially, in their environment after that evidence has been removed and everything has been reset and everybody around them lies. You know, they accomplish things like this by taking over a neighborhood, taking over the cops, essentially, in that neighborhood, so that, essentially, their victims, if they run to anybody and they have limited ability to move around, they'll be noticed, they'll be picked up, they'll be dragged back. Someone will say they're in trouble or they did something when they didn't. They'll be placed in, they'll be put in a fucking, like, around fucking dirty fucking cops who will fucking monstrously take the side, essentially, of the individuals who are raping them, or fucking hurting them, or lying to them, or all of the above, so on and so forth. And so they created these little pocket fucking communities, essentially, of fucking child molesters and whores, who usually are child molesters, essentially, and their fucking victims and children. Isn't that right? Some of their the children of these people grow up normal. They provide camouflage because they don't know any better. Other individuals essentially grow up with full fucking recognition of all of this crap. Because they layered my memory from my experiences and kept on causing me to fucking, like, black out and forget shit at various points, sometimes methods I really don't want to go into right now. You know, just make the video too fucking long. Needless to say, this shit kind of backfired a little bit on them, and some of them are too fucking dumb or too young and fucking dumb, essentially, to realize, oh, they're just fucking themselves, you know? By being inhumane, they fuck themselves, for the most part. By being pieces of shit, they fuck themselves. They could easily try to become better people, and to be entirely honest, the more you try to become a better person, the more likely it's going to happen. You just have to want to be that way, you know? That's the thing. Not an example of being a better person, because I was never a bad person to begin with, but, like, say, for example, take the mind-numbingly freaking banal aspect of this bullshit. I've been through this so many fucking times, essentially, and saw all this stupid shit so many fucking goddamn times that I'm pretty numb to it all, you know? And it's not a good thing. It's a bad thing, actually. I'm not sitting here freaking out, so on and so forth, having a heart attack every 5 minutes like I used to, you know, which I think is something that actually that lizard would cause them fucking, you know, causes them to fucking, like, freak the fuck out. But, you know, in my case. So right now, essentially, I'm remembering, you know, the end results of all this crap. And sometimes it ended up me being drugged and fucking placed back where I started. In other cases, it results in me being put unlawfully in fucking prison for a fucking year. At one particular point, whenever I was in prison, they told me if I moved from my fucking bed once for an entire fucking year when I was not eating or taking shit, that it was going to get a kid raped. So in prison, Colorado. Of course, there'll be no record of it. My daddy was a fucking jailbird there for being a fucking chomo. I'm a jailbird there because he wanted me arrested. He put me in there and he put me in fucking jail whenever I was a kid for a few fucking days. I ended up in the same cell as a fucking adult after getting my fucking ass kicked by a fucking 220-pound fucking roid head and fighting back. And he called the fucking dirty-ass fucking cops out there first. So, yeah, man. I mean, if you can't believe initially what I'm saying, let's think of it in these terms, alright? Have you ever heard of a drug cartel? Well, yeah, I've heard of a drug cartel. It's like, okay, now, what do drug cartels usually sell? Drugs. They sell a little more than that. The answer is anything and everything that someone will pay for, alright, which includes human trafficking a lot of the time, alright? Now here's a question, okay? The richest people in this country, do they like to fuck big-titted women? Or are they fucking sick-ass goddamn control fucking freaks that had fucking fathers that were older and likely turned into secret closet fucking pedophiles in many cases? Oh, yeah. That. So where the hell do you think most of the fucking, like, ruined, essentially, adults come from? They come from ruined children. And the children that were ruined, essentially, were ruined by these pieces of shit. And they created over a very long time period a good way of hiding all this shit. So, if you really want to think of it through these terms, okay? Because honestly, if you ask me what their actual, other than the individuals that I have seen do horrible shit, so on and so forth, and do crap to me, who actually is directly behind this, the blanket term is probably going to be rich assholes. The question is who's their muscle? Who do they use? Maybe they hire out different criminal organizations. Maybe they just represent or unify various fucking, like, criminal organizations. Who fucking knows? But that is really where we're at right now. And I need this to be done. I'm so sick of losing my life to these people for no reason whatsoever. Just so I can walk back through and they're just all wasting their fucking lives because they're so fucking goddamn medicated by the lack of fucking actual stress and the lack of actual fucking life and the lack of prioritizing everything and the idea that nothing fucking matters whatsoever and have no fucking goddamn ambitions whatsoever except to fucking continue to rape their victim class and shit like that, or be around people when they're doing that shit, so on and so forth. I don't even know what to say to finish this statement. It really upsets me, because my life wasn't this way. 36 years in, 37 years in before any of this shit, and probably actually further, because they had to loop me around, essentially, at one particular point and overlap some of the events to fucking bring the fucking really unhappy knowledge, essentially, out that used to freaking cause me to fucking black out and shit. Now they want to drag me back out there and put me in a fucking hole, is what they want to fucking do. So I'll fucking forget again. They don't give a shit. They could care less about anybody. They're heartless monsters, is what they fucking are. And like all fucking, like, pieces of garbage like them, they should be in fucking prison or they should be dead. That's really what it comes down to. And I'm getting sick of some fucking freak, essentially, that used to be one of them, essentially, being used as a fucking sock fucking puppet on somebody's fucking hand to pull some fucking strings, essentially, and follow a fucking script and get me in trouble.